Recovering Charles is about a young man. He's a photojournalist. He lives in Manhattan. He's estranged from his father. They haven't spoken for a couple of years. And he gets a very mysterious phone call right after Hurricane Katrina hits New Orleans. And it's a friend of his father's telling him that his father was last seen living and working and playing music in the Big Easy. And this man says, "We haven't seen your father since the storm. We'd like you to come down and help us look for him." Well, the son is pretty apprehensive. He hasn't spoken to his father in a couple of years, and he says, "No thanks, call me when you know something." And the man says, "No, I think you need to come to New Orleans." So in fact, the young man, Luke, does get in his car. He does drive down to New Orleans, and he spends a week looking for his father, trying to recover his father, not knowing whether he survived the storm or not. And in the process, he'll meet some very interesting people and learn some very interesting lessons about the man that his father became when they weren't speaking. I'm often asked why I picked New Orleans as the backdrop for Recovering Charles. It's really a pretty simple question. In my life, there's been really one event that gripped me to the television, and that was Hurricane Katrina. Even more perhaps than 9/11, I found myself hour after hour after hour watching the aftermath of Katrina, watching a city, a great American city, flood, 80% of it underwater, and I had a hard time pulling myself away. That was occupying sort of one line of thinking during about a month of my life back in 2005. The other line of thinking was, I've got a deadline on a new book, and I knew that I wanted it to be about a father and son and this dynamic of an awkward, estranged relationship. Eventually I realized those two things might fit pretty well together, so I took the father-son relationship and I told it in the backdrop of Katrina. It's not a Hurricane Katrina book per se. It's of course in no way a statement on the storm or on the recovery effort. It's not a political book or a public policy book. It's just a story that's set in a great American city that I think deserves a second verse, just like the characters in the book. I was in the middle of writing Recovering Charles when I had an interesting discussion with my brother. I was discussing with him the plot and sort of where I saw the book going, and he said to me, "It sounds like you believe that every life has a second verse." And I thought, yeah, that's right. And that in fact became the theme of the book, that every life, every single one of us, and in fact every character in Recovering Charles does deserve a second verse to their life. I honestly wish that I could take every single one of you, put you in my car and drive you down to New Orleans so you could experience an incredible city. I had the privilege recently of visiting the Lower Ninth Ward and taking a tour with a great man named Walter. Walter was my taxi cab driver for the day. I saw what looks like a war zone still 3 years after the storm. Many parts of that neighborhood and the surrounding neighborhoods have yet to be rebuilt at all. It's amazing to drive down the streets and see scenes that are virtually unchanged in 3 years. I don't know that America understands how much work is yet to be done.
Tonight I tried to write the perfect song of love, but all the words I sang were blue. Because I've tried and I've tried to win you over,